Hello, everyone. I'm Minister James Moss. We're back again with continuing education. This video is entitled Peter's Miraculous Escape from Prison. And we're in chapter 12, verses 6 through 19. And we're just going to jump right into it. All right. James was already dead. Peter was in prison. From a human perspective, the situation appeared terribly grim. But from a heavenly perspective, this was just another opportunity to display the infinite power of God. All right. So, verses 6 through 19. And when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night Peter was sleeping between two soldiers bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison, and he smote Peter on the side and raised him up, saying, Arise up quickly. And his chains fell off from his hands. And the angel said unto him, Gird thyself and bind on thy sandals. And so he did. And he said unto him, Cast thy garment about thee and follow me. And he went out and followed him, and wist not that it was true which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. When they were past the first and second ward, they came unto the iron gate that leadeth into the city, which opened to them of his own accord, and they went out and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. And when Peter was come to himself, he said, Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath sent his angel, and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews. And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. And as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken, named Rhoda. And when she knew Peter's voice, she opened not the gate for gladness, but ran in and told how Peter stood before the gate. And they said unto her, Thou art mad. But she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, It is his angel. But Peter continued knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished. But he, beckoning unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declared unto them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, Go show these things unto James and to the brethren. And he departed and went into another place. Now, as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers what was become of Peter. And when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Judea to Caesarea, and there abode. And Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon, but they came with one accord to him. Oh, I'm sorry, I went too far. I hate when I do that, because if I don't mark off my stopping point, I'll do that. Didn't go too far. Okay. Verse 6. Luke carefully recorded the location of the soldiers in charge of making sure this reputed jailbreaking apostle did not slip away again and leave Herod with a serious public relations problem. The two soldiers were chained to Peter, one on either side, and others were standing guard at the prison, or at the prison gate. Luke again stressed the power of God over earthly rulers. Verses 7 and 8. This same type of jailbreak had happened to the apostles before, as recorded in chapter 5, verses 9 through 24, but more detail is given here from his sleep. More detail is given here. From his sleep, Peter was roused by an angel of the Lord and was told to get up. The command was accompanied by the chains falling off his wrist. The term for falling off comes from a Greek word meaning to drop away. Neither the angel nor Peter touched the chains. They came off because God was setting Peter free. Nothing is written about the whereabouts of the guards, who were likely not the only prison guards around. A couple of them would have been posted at every gate, every door, and at every possible escape route from the prison. The soldiers may have been dazed, asleep, or blinded from the whole event. In the end, it would be a deadly miracle for them. Verses 9 and 10. Peter seemed dazed as he followed the angel's instructions because he thought it was a vision. Peter thought this was similar to his experience with the sheet let down from heaven recorded in chapter 10. They passed two two guard posts before arriving at the iron gate, which led to the street. With dramatic effect, the gate mysteriously and miraculously opened. And the angel stayed with Peter a little longer, then suddenly left Peter alone. And then verse 11, Peter finally realized what had happened. He realized that the Lord had saved him. He knew Herod's plans to use Peter's incarceration as another way to ingratiate himself to the Jews. Peter's awareness of his life-threatening situation, particularly in the light of the recent execution of James, made his peaceful sleep in the prison cell all the more marvelous. Peter had seen enough to trust that the Father was in control of his life. Verse 12, once he realized that he was not dreaming, Peter went directly to the home of Mary, the mother of John Mark. Mentioned here in passing, John Mark was the author of the Gospel of Mark and became an important character on the first journey of Paul. Mary's house was large enough to accommodate a meeting of many believers. An upstairs room in her house may have been the location of Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples and or the place where the 120 earliest believers met for prayer. Evidently, Mary's home was a common place for meeting for the Jerusalem church, at least for prayer. This particular night, with their beloved Peter in prison and the Apostle James recently martyred, a large group had gathered for prayer. Verses 13 through 15. Peter knocked, and Rhoda, a servant girl, answered the door. Mary's house must have had a vestibule or hallway to the street with an outer door at the street and an inner door opening into the house. Rhoda was so excited to hear Peter's voice that she forgot to open the door. Meanwhile, the sober, serious saints are hard at work of praying for Peter's release, failed to realize that the answer to their prayer was standing at the door, trying to get in. They even went so far as to accuse the poor girl of being crazy. At her insistence, they speculated that maybe Peter's angel was at the door, indicating they thought that he must have been executed already. One wonders what was going through this usually impatient apostle's mind at this point. Certainly, his absence from prisons would be noticed soon. The guards would likely know exactly where to look for him. The servant girl had recognized Peter's voice, but the others, so busy praying for Peter's release, wouldn't come to the door to let the freed apostle into the house. If ever people should stop praying and do something, that was the time. As Peter continued knocking, someone finally went to the outer door and opened it, and everyone was amazed. Verse 17. The pandemonium was so loud that Peter had to quiet the crowd. He recounted the story of his escape and instructed that the information be passed on to James and the other brothers. This James was Jesus' brother, who became a leader in the Jerusalem church. The James who had been killed earlier was John's brother and one of the original 12 disciples. Peter's instruction to inform James indicates that James may have already been recognized as one of the leaders of the Jerusalem church. Perhaps through this very series of events and this statement before he gathered church, Peter was officially moving out of direct leadership of the Jerusalem believers. Possibly he sensed that his latest brush with Herod was God's sovereign shifting of him to plow another field. In short order, likely because of his certainty that Herod's soldiers would be after him, Peter went to another place. It is unknown exactly where he went. Verses 18 and 19. Meanwhile, back at the prison, there was a great commotion. Under Roman law, guards who allowed a prisoner to escape were subject to the same punishment the prisoner was to receive. After a thorough search for Peter, these 16 guards were sentenced to death. Herod's departure to Caesarea sets up the next scene. The Jews considered Jerusalem their capital, but the Romans made Caesarea their headquarters in Palestine. That was where Herod lived. All right, and that concludes this one as far as Peter's miraculous escape. I talked about this in one of my other videos, not so much out of continuing education or just a closer walk with thee, but just kind of a teaching video where sometimes, with the people that were praying, for them to be so caught up and not realize that somebody's come to say, hey, your prayer has been answered. Peter's at the door, they're like, oh, you must be hallucinating. No, it must be his ghost or whatever. Obviously, it made me question to what degree of faith was being exercised in prayer by some of these people. But I also taught that somebody in there knew the power of prayer. Somebody knew how to reach God. Somebody got through. All right. The rest of them might have been going through the motions, but there was somebody that actually believed that that prayer would be answered, that he would be freed. All right. So listen, go back and just kind of, reread the scriptures, observe the situation, the climate and things, and just watch the series of events and see what God reveals to you. Maybe he shows you something different than what he shows me. But by all means, continue to study. Continue to study. God bless you.